So hello everyone again. I thought it might be useful to go through a little bit some of the getting started with JavaScript and jQuery bits. I thought it might be useful to do these together, some of these exercises, and just basically go through this to make sure if anybody has any sort of problems or they're really stuck on any of the that first section, then you can take a look at this video and see what I'm talking about, maybe make a bit more sense. So let's first of all take a look at this quick exercise. What I wanted you to do was to copy and paste the HTML that I provided into your page. Oh, hold on. There we go. And so if we take a look at what that does, that gives us a paragraph here, sitting here. And then if we copy and paste the JavaScript as well up. I don't know why it's set to formatting two spaces. There we go. Make it look slightly neater. Okay. Then what we should see is actually what happens is when the page loads, very briefly we see the paragraph, and then immediately that the JavaScript loads, it disappears. And the JavaScript will always load a little bit after the page load, okay, because of this this function which we use here, which is document ready. This is a sort of standard way of loading jQuery functions into a page. The reason we do it is because if you start to run your JavaScript or your jQuery before your whole page is loaded and all the images and whatever, you sometimes have some sort of strange visual effects that happen. For example, you might use an element. jQuery might need to calculate the width or the length of an element before the image inside it has loaded, so it'll start the calculation, then the element will get bigger because the image will load, and then the rest of the calculation will happen, so you have some weird side effects. So what we usually do is we wrap everything that we're doing in the page, all of the functions, everything that we're doing with JavaScript, we wrap it in what we call an event handler, which says basically look at the document, and when the document fires off the event, which was called ready, run the following function. Okay, this is a something that's pre-built into jQuery, so you can't just use any event name here. You have to use the functions that jQuery provides, but ready is one of those, which hooks everything into the ready event on the document. So document loads, fires the ready event, and then jQuery says, okay, do everything else that I've put in here then, which in our case is just one line, which takes anything labeled with a class myp and hides it. So as you can see, the effect of that is as I load the page, very quickly, almost instantaneously, but not quite, the paragraph disappears. Okay, so that maybe makes that a little bit clearer as to what's happening here. Then we have, then I said take a look at that and see what you can do with the CSS jQuery method, which we did see briefly above in one of the examples. What I can do is show you some of the things you can do with the CSS method. So basically, the CSS method, it takes two parameters. The first is a string, which is the name of the method you want to use, and then the second is the parameter of the CSS property, is the value of the CSS property you want to set. So for example, imagine that we want to set the color of an element. So in CSS we would write color blue like this, okay? And so in JavaScript, instead of that we write .css to call that function, and then the first parameter is color and the second parameter is blue, and that could also be a hexadecimal value or an RGBA value or whatever. And as you can see, the paragraph loads and becomes blue. We can do lots of other stuff with this. You can change all the CSS properties basically using this method. We can add margin. We can add padding. Okay, any of that. Doing it in this way, i.e. loading the, sorry, I'm just going to make it a bit bigger, it's probably easier for you to see. Doing it this way, i.e. loading the padding just having a simple function which literally just adds padding obviously is not, in practical use, not really what you tend to do. We don't usually use JavaScript in this way. What we do instead is, because we're talking about adding interactivity to our page, often we add, instead of just doing this randomly at any point, we add it to an event. So the event might be clicking on a button adds padding to the top of the paragraph, or pressing enter on a form will change the color of the form fields if they are not valid text, right? That kind of thing. So we tend to do that sort of manipulation after an event happens, as opposed to doing it immediately that the page loads. But this is just to demonstrate that anything that you put inside here happens immediately that the page loads.